They say a mother's love is unconditional, that we do anything for our children, forgive anything, sacrifice everything. I believed that my whole life. I wore it like armor, like proof that I was a good woman, a good mother. But here's what they don't tell you. Sometimes that love becomes a blindfold, and by the time you finally take it off, you realize you've been standing on the edge of a cliff the whole time, and the person holding your hand isn't trying to pull you back. They're waiting for you to fall. My name is Eleanor Hayes. I'm 65 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I knew exactly what my life was. A widow, a mother, a woman grateful that her only son came home to take care of her when she needed him most. But that piece of paper, that crumpled note that slid under my front door on a Tuesday afternoon, changed everything. 7 words scrawled in shaky handwriting. Get out of here if you want to live. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. When your whole world is built on trust, on the belief that the people closest to you would never hurt you, it's almost impossible to see the truth when it's staring you in the face, even when the signs are there. Even when your body is screaming at you that something is wrong. If you're listening to this from somewhere safe, somewhere you feel loved, I want you to drop a comment and tell me where you're from. Because right now, sitting here, I realize how precious that feeling is, how rare it is to truly feel safe in your own home. Let me take you back to where it started. Not 3 months ago, when the note arrived, but a year before that, when I was still living what I thought was a quiet, peaceful life. It was October, and the leaves outside my kitchen window had turned that burnt orange color that always reminded me of my late husband Thomas's favorite sweater. He'd been gone 3 years by then, and I'd learned to live with the silence. My house in suburban Atlanta, a modest 2-bedroom with creaky floors and a porch that needed painting, had become my sanctuary. I'd wake up, make my coffee, sit in Thomas's old armchair, and watch the neighborhood come alive. The Johnsons walking their golden retriever, the Martinez kids waiting for the school bus, life moving forward while I stood still. I didn't mind it. After 42 years of marriage, 23 years of teaching elementary school, and a lifetime of being needed by everyone, the quiet felt like permission to finally rest. My son Marcus lived in Chicago then. He was 38, working in finance, or so he told me. We talked every few weeks. Brief conversations where he'd ask about my health and tell me he was busy. I told myself that's what adult children do. They build their own lives. It's natural. It's healthy. But the truth is, we'd never been close. Not in the way I dreamed we would be when I held him as a baby, counting his tiny fingers and promising him the world. Marcus had always been distant, even as a child. Secretive. Thomas used to say he was just independent, that we should be proud we'd raised a son who didn't need us. But a mother knows. There was something else there, something I couldn't quite name. Then came the accidents. The first one happened on a Wednesday morning in late March. I was carrying laundry down to the basement when I missed a step, just one step, and tumbled down the entire staircase. I remember the sound of my body hitting each wooden step, the sharp crack when my shoulder slammed into the concrete floor. Mrs. Martinez from next door heard me screaming and called 911. Dislocated shoulder, severe bruising, mild concussion. You're lucky you didn't break your hip, the young doctor told me in the emergency room, as if I should be grateful for only being half destroyed. At your age, you need to be more careful. At your age. As if I'd suddenly become fragile overnight. As if I hadn't been walking up and down those stairs for 28 years without incident. Marcus flew in the next day. I was surprised. He'd never been the type to drop everything for family emergencies. But there he was, standing in my hospital room with flowers and concern etched on his face, looking so much like his father that my heart ached. "Mom, you can't live alone anymore," he said, pulling up a chair next to my bed. "What if this happens again and no one's there to help you?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. It was just an accident that could have killed you." His voice was gentle, but there was something underneath it. Something that felt like steel wrapped in velvet. "I've been thinking about this for a while. I could take a leave from work. Come stay with you for a few months. Make sure you're okay." I should have questioned it. Why would a successful finance professional leave his career to babysit his mother after one fall? But I didn't, because I was lonely. because I missed having someone in the house, because some desperate part of me believed that maybe finally my son wanted to be close to me. "Are you sure?" I asked. "What about your job?" "You're more important than any job, Mom." He squeezed my hand, and I felt tears spring to my eyes. "Let me take care of you, the way you always took care of me." He moved in 2 weeks later. At first, it felt like a blessing. Marcus cooked meals, handled the bills, drove me to doctor's appointments. He was attentive in a way he'd never been before, always asking how I felt, if I needed anything, if I was taking my medications. The medications. That's where it started to change. I'd been taking blood pressure medication for years, just one small pill every morning. Simple. But after the fall, my doctor had supposedly adjusted my prescription. Marcus picked it up from the pharmacy and set up a pill organizer for me. "So you don't forget," he said, kissing my forehead. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? But then the dizziness started, the fatigue. Some mornings I'd wake up and my hands would be shaking so badly I couldn't hold my coffee cup. Other days, my heart would race like I'd run a marathon just from walking to the mailbox. "It's your blood pressure adjusting to the new medication," Marcus would say, his voice soothing. "Give it time." So I gave it time. The second accident happened in June. I was cooking dinner, my grandmother's pot roast recipe that I'd made 1,000 times, when I suddenly felt the room spin. One moment I was standing at the stove, the next I was on the floor with a pan of hot oil splattered across the kitchen tiles. Burning. I could smell my own skin burning. Marcus rushed in, pulled me away from the stove, wrapped my arm in cold towels. Second-degree burns on my forearm and hand. "We're going to the hospital," he said, but his voice was calm. Too calm for someone whose mother had just been injured. In the emergency room, a different doctor, an older woman with kind eyes, examined the burns and asked me questions. How often was I feeling dizzy? Was I eating enough? Had anyone checked my blood sugar recently? Her blood pressure medication was just adjusted, Marcus answered before I could speak. She's still adapting to it. The doctor nodded, but something in her expression shifted. She looked at me, not at Marcus, and said, "Mrs. Hayes, do you have a primary care physician you see regularly?" "Dr. Patterson," I said. "I've been seeing him for 15 years. I think you should schedule an appointment with him. Soon. These symptoms, the dizziness, the shaking, the heart palpitations, they shouldn't be happening from a simple medication adjustment." Marcus stood up. "I'll make sure she does. Thank you, doctor." But he never made that appointment. Every time I mentioned it, he'd say Dr. Patterson was booked out for months, or that I should wait until the burns healed, or that we could find a new doctor if I wasn't happy with Dr. Patterson anymore. I let it go, because I trusted him, because he was my son. The third accident happened in August. I was alone in the house. Marcus had gone to the grocery store when I felt that familiar spinning sensation. I tried to sit down, but my legs gave out. I collapsed in the hallway, hitting my head on the corner of the side table. When I woke up, Marcus was kneeling over me, his phone in his hand, telling the 911 dispatcher that his mother had fallen again. This time, they kept me overnight for observation. "Possible seizure," they said. "We need to run tests." But the tests never happened. Marcus signed me out the next morning, against medical advice, saying he'd take me to see a specialist privately. A specialist he never took me to. That's when the isolation began. "You need to rest, Mom. No visitors until you're feeling better. The Martinezes keep calling. Just tell them you're fine but you need privacy. Maybe you shouldn't go to church this Sunday. You're still weak." My world got smaller and smaller. My friends stopped calling after Marcus told them I wasn't up for company. My neighbors stopped knocking after he explained I needed quiet. Even my own sister, my baby sister Ruth, who lived 2 hours away in Savannah, couldn't get through. "I tried calling you 5 times yesterday," Ruth said when she finally reached me on Marcus's phone. He'd been in the shower, and I'd answered without thinking. "I'm sorry, Ruthie. I've been sleeping a lot." "Eleanor, what's going on? Marcus won't let me talk to you. He says you're sick, but he won't tell me what's wrong. I've just been having some dizzy spells, falls. The doctors are trying to figure it out." There was a long pause. Then Ruth said, in a voice I barely recognized, "Ellie, do you remember what happened to Barbara Clemens?" Barbara Clemens. The name sent ice through my veins. She'd been in our church group, a vibrant woman in her early 70s. Then her son moved in to help her after she broke her ankle. 6 months later, she was dead. Natural causes, they said. Heart failure. But there had been whispers. Questions that never got answered. Ruth, don't. Her son inherited everything. The house, the life insurance, her savings. And you know what? He'd been in debt. Gambling debts. Everyone knew it. But Barbara. Marcus isn't, I started, but Ruth cut me off. Just be careful, Eleanor. Please, something doesn't feel right. Marcus came out of the bathroom, and I quickly said goodbye. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Was that Aunt Ruth? Yes. What did she want? Just to check on me. He took the phone from my hand gently. Mom, I think we should change your number. All these calls are stressing you out. You need to focus on getting better. He changed my number the next day. That's where I was 3 months ago when the note appeared. Living in my own home like a prisoner. Too weak to leave. Too confused to understand what was happening to my body. Too trusting to question the son who'd finally come home to care for me. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Marcus had gone out. He'd started leaving more often lately, sometimes for hours at a time. Part of me was grateful for the solitude. But another part, a part I tried to ignore, noticed that I felt better when he was gone. The shaking would lessen. My mind would clear. Just a little. I was sitting in Thomas's old armchair, dozing in and out, when I heard something slide under the front door. The sound was so soft I almost missed it. For a moment, I thought it was just the mail carrier. But then I realized the mail had already come that morning. With tremendous effort, everything took tremendous effort by then. I pushed myself out of the chair and shuffled to the door. My legs felt like they were filled with sand. My hands trembled as I bent down to pick up the folded piece of paper. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible, written in blue ink on what looked like paper torn from a notebook. Get out of here if you want to live. My first thought was that it was a prank. Neighborhood kids, maybe. My second thought was that it was a mistake, meant for someone else. But then I noticed something else written at the bottom, in smaller letters. Your neighbor, William. I know what's happening. You're in danger. William. The old man who lived in the house to my right. I'd barely spoken to him in all the years I'd lived here. He was a recluse, a widower who kept his curtains drawn and his lawn overgrown. I'd see him occasionally, shuffling to his mailbox or sitting on his porch in the evening. But we'd never exchanged more than a polite nod. Why would he? The front door of his house opened, and I saw him standing there watching me. He was tall and gaunt, probably in his early 70s, with white hair and eyes that looked haunted. When our gazes met, he pressed a finger to his lips, a gesture to stay quiet, and then pointed urgently toward the street. Leave. He was telling me to leave. My heart started racing. Not the strange chemical racing I'd been experiencing for months, but real fear. I looked back at the note in my trembling hands, and that's when I felt it, the now familiar spinning sensation. The room tilted, my vision blurred, but this time, something was different. This time, my mind was clear enough to think, this always happens after I take my pills. The pills Marcus gives me. I stumbled back to the chair, collapsing into it. The note fell from my hands and drifted to the floor. My mouth felt dry, my tongue thick. I tried to focus, to think, but the fog was descending again. That heavy, suffocating fog that had become my constant companion. Through the window, I could see William still standing on his porch, his face twisted with worry. Then I heard it. Marcus's car pulling into the driveway. I tried to pick up the note, to hide it, but my hands wouldn't cooperate. Everything was moving in slow motion. The sound of Marcus's key in the lock seemed to take an eternity. The door opened. "Hey, Mom," Marcus called out, cheerful and casual. "I'm home. Time for your afternoon medications." He walked into the living room, carrying a small white bag from the pharmacy and a bottle of water. Then his eyes dropped to the floor. To the note lying there, its message visible to anyone who looked. For just a fraction of a second, so brief I almost thought I imagined it, his face changed. The concern vanished. The warmth disappeared. What I saw underneath was something cold, something calculating. Then the mask came back. "What's this?" he asked, bending down to pick up the note. He read it, and when he looked up at me, his expression was one of confused worry. But I'd seen that other face. I'd seen what was underneath. Mom, where did this come from? Under the door? My words were slurring. Why were my words slurring? This is crazy, he said, crumpling the note in his fist. That old man next door, William something, he's not right in the head. Everyone knows it. I've seen him wandering around at night, talking to himself. He's probably got dementia or something. He said, danger. You're not in danger, Mom. You're sick. You're confused. That's why you need these. He held up the pill bottle, shaking it. Let me get you your medication, and then you can rest. He walked toward the kitchen, but I saw him glance back at me, calculating, measuring, making sure I was too weak to follow. And that's when I realized something that made my blood turn to ice. That note under the door? It had arrived 10 minutes ago. Marcus had been gone for 2 hours, supposedly running errands. But his car had pulled up less than 30 seconds after I picked up that note. He'd been waiting, watching, making sure I got it, making sure I read it. Why? From the kitchen, I heard the sound of pills rattling into a cup, water running from the tap. Marcus humming softly to himself, that same tuneless hum he'd done since he was a little boy. And I thought about Barbara Clemens, about her son who'd been in debt, about how she'd died of natural causes 6 months after he'd moved in to help her. I thought about my 3 accidents, about the medications that made me weaker instead of stronger, about how I'd felt better during the brief hours when Marcus was gone. I thought about my husband's life insurance policy, $200,000, with Marcus as the sole beneficiary. About this house, paid off, worth at least $300,000 in this market. About my retirement savings, modest but significant. And I thought about my son, who'd never had money, who'd always lived beyond his means, who'd shown up out of nowhere after I fell down those stairs. Marcus appeared in the doorway, holding a small paper cup with pills and a glass of water. He was smiling, that gentle smile, that caring son smile. Here you go, Mom, he said, walking toward me. These will help you feel better. I looked down at the pills, 3 of them today instead of the usual 2. Small, white, innocent looking. My hand reached out automatically, years of trust and obedience and wanting to be a good patient making me compliant. But as my fingers touched the paper cup, I felt something else. A small, desperate voice inside me screaming one word, no. Mom? Marcus's voice cut through the fog in my mind. Are you okay? You look pale. I stared at those 3 white pills in the paper cup. My hand was shaking so badly they were rattling against the sides. I don't feel well. That's exactly why you need to take these. He knelt down beside the chair, his face close to mine, concerned, loving. They'll help with the dizziness. The doctor said, which doctor? The words came out before I could stop them. Marcus paused, just for a second, but I saw it. Dr. Patterson, your regular doctor. I haven't seen Dr. Patterson in months. Of course you have, Mom. You just don't remember. The confusion is getting worse. That's one of the symptoms. His hand touched mine, guiding the cup toward my mouth. Come on now. Be a good girl. Be a good girl. That's what my father used to say when I didn't want to eat my vegetables, when I cried too loud, when I asked too many questions. Be a good girl, Eleanor. I'd been a good girl my whole life. A good daughter. A good wife. A good mother. A good woman who did what she was told, who trusted the people who were supposed to love her, who never made waves or asked uncomfortable questions. And where had it gotten me? Sitting in my own home, so weak I could barely stand, about to swallow pills given to me by a son who might be trying to kill me. Might be. Even then, even with all the evidence stacking up in my mind like stones in a wall, I couldn't quite believe it. Couldn't quite accept that the baby I'd nursed and rocked and sung to sleep could grow into a man capable of something so monstrous. I don't want them, I whispered. Marcus's face hardened, just for a moment. Then the mask slipped back into place. Mom, you're not thinking clearly. The illness is affecting your judgment. You need these medications to survive. Then let me talk to Dr. Patterson myself. Let me call him right now. It's after 5. The office is closed. He stood up, towering over me. You can call him tomorrow, but right now, you need to take these pills. They're keeping you alive. Or killing me slowly, I thought. But I didn't say it. Because even as my mind was clearing, as the pieces were falling into place, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. If Marcus realized that I knew what he was doing, I wouldn't survive the night. So I did what women like me have done for generations when faced with men who have power over us. I pretended. I played weak. I played confused. I played the role of the sick old woman who didn't understand what was happening to her. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice small and defeated. "You're right. I'm just confused." Relief flickered across his face. "It's okay, Mom. I know you don't mean it. The illness makes you paranoid sometimes. But I'm here. I'm going to take care of you." I took the pills from his hand, placed them on my tongue, let him watch as I took a sip of water, but I didn't swallow. I held them under my tongue, the bitter taste making my eyes water, and waited until he turned away. "That's my good mom," he said, walking back toward the kitchen. "I'm going to make dinner. Why don't you rest?" The moment he was out of sight, I spit the pills into my hand. They were half dissolved, leaving a chalky residue on my palm that I wiped on the inside of the chair cushion. My heart was hammering. If he came back and checked my mouth. But he didn't. I heard him in the kitchen, opening cabinets, running water, humming that tuneless melody. I looked out the window. William's porch was empty now, but I could see a light on in his living room. And I thought about that note. About his warning. About how he'd said he knew what was happening. How could he know? I must have dozed off in the chair because when I woke up, it was dark outside, and Marcus was gently shaking my shoulder. "Dinner's ready, Mom. I made your favorite. Chicken and dumplings." My stomach should have growled. I used to love chicken and dumplings. But now the thought of eating anything Marcus prepared made me feel sick. Still, I forced myself to get up, to shuffle to the dining room table, to sit down in front of the steaming bowl he placed before me. It smelled wonderful. It looked perfect. And I was terrified of it. "Eat up," Marcus said, sitting across from me with his own bowl. "You need your strength." I picked up my spoon with trembling hands and stirred the dumplings, buying time. Marcus was watching me. I could feel it, even though he was pretending to eat his own food. "I was thinking," he said casually, "maybe we should look into assisted living facilities. Just for a little while, until you get stronger." My blood ran cold. Assisted living? Nothing permanent. Just a place where you can get round-the-clock care. Professional care. The accidents keep happening, Mom, and I can't be here 24/7. What if you fall again and I'm not home? What if next time you really hurt yourself? What he meant was, what if next time you don't die and someone starts asking questions? "I don't want to leave my home," I said, and I heard the tremor in my voice. Not fake this time. Real fear. "I know, sweetheart, but we have to think practically. This house is too big for you. Too many stairs, too many hazards." He reached across the table and took my hand. His palm was warm and dry. His grip was firm. "And honestly, Mom, I'm exhausted. Taking care of you, it's harder than I thought it would be." There it was, the truth slipping through the cracks of his concern. He was tired of waiting, tired of the slow process. He wanted to move me somewhere isolated, somewhere controlled, somewhere he could finish what he'd started without nosy neighbors like William watching. "Just think about it," he said, releasing my hand. "Now eat, before it gets cold." I took a small bite, chewed slowly, swallowed. It tasted like ash in my mouth, but I forced myself to eat a few more spoonfuls while Marcus watched. Then I pushed the bowl away. "I'm sorry, I'm just not hungry. You barely ate anything. My stomach is upset." He sighed, but he didn't push it. Instead, he cleared the table and told me to go to bed. "Big day tomorrow. We have an appointment with a neurologist. Finally got you in to see someone who can figure out what's wrong." A neurologist. Another doctor I'd never heard of. Another appointment I hadn't made. I went to my bedroom, my prison, and closed the door. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to think through the fog that still clung to my mind. I'd skipped the afternoon pills, but the morning ones were still in my system. And months of whatever Marcus had been giving me didn't leave your body overnight. I needed help. Real help. But my phone was gone. My computer, old and slow but functional, had mysteriously stopped working 2 weeks ago. Marcus had promised to get it fixed, but never did. I had no way to contact Ruth, or the police, or anyone. Except, I looked at my bedroom window. It faced William's house. His bedroom light was on. I could see his shadow moving behind the curtains. My hands were shaking as I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen from my nightstand. What could I write? What could I say that would make him understand the urgency without alerting Marcus if he somehow intercepted it? In the end, I kept it simple. Help me. He's poisoning me. Please, Eleanor. I folded the paper into a small square and waited, listening to Marcus moving around the house, washing dishes, watching TV in the living room. Finally, around 10 o'clock, I heard him climb the stairs to the guest bedroom. I waited another 30 minutes. Then, moving as quietly as I could, I opened my bedroom window. The old hinges creaked, and I froze, my heart in my throat. But no sound came from Marcus's room. I leaned out into the cool night air and looked at William's window. His light was still on. I crumpled the note into a ball and threw it as hard as I could toward his house. It fell short, landing in the strip of grass between our properties. I wanted to cry. I was so weak, so pathetic. I couldn't even throw a piece of paper 10 feet. But then I saw movement. William's window opened. He looked out, and our eyes met across the darkness. I pointed frantically at the ground, at where the note had fallen. He nodded, held up one finger, wait, and disappeared from view. 2 minutes later, I saw his back door open. He crept out into his yard, a thin figure in a bathrobe, moving surprisingly quickly for a man his age. He found the note, picked it up, and looked back at my window. Even in the darkness, I could see the expression on his face. Grief, recognition, and something that looked like rage. He pressed his hand to his heart, then pointed at me. A promise. Then he hurried back inside. I closed my window as carefully as I'd opened it and crawled into bed fully clothed. For the first time in months, I felt something other than resignation and confusion. I felt hope. Morning came too soon. I woke to Marcus knocking on my door, that cheerful voice calling out that it was time for breakfast and my morning medications. Every fiber of my being wanted to refuse, but I couldn't, not yet. So I shuffled to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, and emerged to find Marcus waiting with that same paper cup of pills and a glass of water. This time I was ready. I took the pills, took a large sip of water, and when I turned to set the glass down, I let my hand slip. Water spilled all over the nightstand, soaking the pile of magazines there. "Oh, Mom," Marcus sighed, grabbing a towel from the bathroom. While his back was turned, I spit the pills into my hand and shoved them under the mattress. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice weak. "My hands. It's okay. It's the tremors. That's why we're seeing the neurologist today, remember?" He finished cleaning up the water and looked at me with those concerned eyes that I now knew were lies. "Come on. Let's get some breakfast in you before we leave." The neurologist appointment wasn't until 11, but Marcus wanted to leave by 9:30. "In case there's traffic," he said. But I knew the real reason. He wanted me weak and disoriented when we got there. Wanted the doctor to see exactly what he'd created. A confused old woman who couldn't be trusted to make her own decisions. I forced down some oatmeal, my stomach churning with fear and anger. Then Marcus helped me to the car. Helped as if I were an invalid who couldn't walk on my own. Which, to be fair, I barely could. Months of poison had taken their toll. As we pulled out of the driveway, I looked back at William's house. He was standing at his window, watching. And I wondered if this was the last time I'd see my home. If Marcus was going to use this doctor's appointment as a stepping stone to having me committed, to getting power of attorney, to finishing what he'd started. The drive to the medical complex took 40 minutes. Marcus talked the whole way, cheerful chatter about nothing important. The weather, a movie he'd watched, what he was planning to make for dinner, as if this were normal, as if he weren't slowly murdering his own mother. I stared out the window and thought about all the moments I'd missed, all the signs I'd ignored because I wanted so desperately to believe that my son loved me, the way he'd isolated me from my friends and family, the way he controlled every aspect of my life, the way I got sicker and sicker while he got more and more impatient. If you've ever loved someone who hurt you, if you've ever made excuses for someone because the truth was too painful to face, I want you to know something. You're not alone. And it's not your fault. We're taught that love conquers all, that family is everything, that we should forgive and forget. But sometimes love is the blindfold that keeps us from seeing that we're in danger. Sometimes the person who hurts us most is the person we want most to trust. If this story is touching something in you, some fear or memory you've been pushing down, please leave a comment. Tell me I'm not alone in this. Because sitting in that car, watching the world go by through the window, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. The medical complex was huge and sterile, all glass and steel and that antiseptic smell that makes you feel sick even if you're healthy. Marcus parked in the garage and came around to help me out of the car. His grip on my arm was firm, controlling. We took the elevator to the 3rd floor. Neurology Associates, the sign read. Marcus checked me in, speaking in low tones to the receptionist while I sat in the waiting room chair, trying not to shake. The doctor will see you soon, the receptionist said with a practiced smile. I looked around the waiting room. 3 other people. An older man reading a magazine. A middle-aged woman scrolling on her phone. A young man with his leg in a cast. Normal people living normal lives. None of them knowing that the frail woman in the corner was fighting for her survival. I needed to get alone with the doctor. Needed to tell them what was happening. But Marcus would be there. He'd answer all the questions. He'd explain away my accusations as dementia, as paranoia, as symptoms of whatever fictional illness he'd created for me. Unless, Mrs. Hayes? A nurse appeared in the doorway. We're ready for you. Marcus stood up, but I remained seated. I need to use the restroom first. Mom, you should have gone before we left. I didn't need to then. I need to now. I looked up at him, and I saw the flicker of annoyance cross his face. He was on a schedule. This was throwing off his plan. The doctor is waiting. Then the doctor can wait another 5 minutes. I stood up, swaying a little, and saw the nurse's expression shift to concern. The restroom is just down the hall, she said gently. Would you like me to walk with you? I can manage, I said, even though I couldn't. But I needed to be alone, just for a moment. The nurse pointed the way, and I shuffled down the hallway, feeling Marcus's eyes boring into my back. The bathroom was empty, clean and cold, with fluorescent lights that made me look like a corpse in the mirror. And maybe I was. Maybe I was already dead and just too stubborn to lie down. But then I saw it. Mounted on the wall next to the paper towel dispenser, a red emergency phone with a sign that read, "For emergencies, lift receiver." My hands were shaking as I reached for it. Was this an emergency? Could I call 911 from here? What would I even say? My son is poisoning me, but I have no proof. Just a feeling and a note from a neighbor. They'd think I was crazy. They'd call Marcus. He'd explain that his poor mother was having delusions, that he was trying so hard to care for her, that this was exactly why he'd brought her to see a neurologist. And they'd believe him, because he was young and clear-eyed and articulate, and I was old and weak and confused. I lowered my hand. Not yet. I needed more than a feeling. I needed evidence. When I emerged from the bathroom, Marcus was waiting right outside the door. You took a while. I'm sorry. The doctor is ready now. Come on. He guided me back to the examination room, where a tall man in a white coat was waiting. Dr. Reeves, his name tag read. He was maybe 50, with graying hair and a kind smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Mrs. Hayes, he said, shaking my hand. I'm Dr. Reeves. Your son tells me you've been having some concerning symptoms. Why don't you tell me what's been going on? I opened my mouth to speak, but Marcus beat me to it. She's been having falls. 3 major ones in the past few months. Severe dizziness, tremors, confusion, heart palpitations. We think it might be related to her blood pressure medication, but her primary care physician retired, and we've been struggling to find someone who can help. That was a new lie. Dr. Patterson hadn't retired. Marcus had just prevented me from seeing him. Dr. Reeves nodded, making notes on his tablet. And you live with your son? Yes, I whispered. He takes good care of you? Marcus squeezed my shoulder. Gentle, loving, a warning. I try my best. Has anyone checked for a stroke? Early onset dementia? We've been trying to get her in for proper testing, but she refuses to go sometimes. The paranoia is getting worse. Paranoia. There was the word. The setup. Now anything I said would be dismissed as symptoms. Dr. Reeves looked at me. Mrs. Hayes, do you feel paranoid? I met his eyes, and in that moment, I had to make a choice. Play it safe, stay quiet, go along with Marcus's charade, and hope that somehow I'd find another opportunity to get help, or tell the truth and risk everything. My son is poisoning me, I said. The words hung in the air like smoke. Marcus's hand tightened on my shoulder. Mom, he's been giving me pills that make me sick. He's been isolating me from my family. He's trying to kill me for my insurance money. Dr. Reeves's expression shifted, not to belief, to pity. Mrs. Hayes, these kinds of paranoid delusions are actually quite common with certain neurological conditions. I'm not delusional. My voice was stronger than it had been in months. Check my medications, test my blood, please, I'm begging you. Mom, please, Marcus said, and there were tears in his eyes now. Perfect, glistening tears. This is exactly what I was talking about. She's been making these accusations for weeks. It's breaking my heart. I understand this is difficult, Dr. Reeves said, his voice gentle, condescending. But these paranoid episodes, it's not paranoia if someone really is trying to hurt you. I was shaking now, crying, my voice rising to a shout. Please, you have to believe me. He's going to kill me. He's going to— Mom, calm down. You're going to make yourself sick. Marcus's voice was soothing, but his fingers dug into my shoulder hard enough to leave bruises. A nurse appeared in the doorway, alerted by my shouting. Dr. Reeves gave her a look, some silent communication that made my blood run cold. I think we should admit her for observation, Dr. Reeves said. Run a full neurological workup. It's clear she's experiencing some kind of acute episode. Admit me. Lock me away. Put me somewhere Marcus could visit whenever he wanted, somewhere he could finish the job without any witnesses. No, I said, trying to stand. No, I won't. But my legs gave out. Marcus caught me, held me up, and I realized with horror that I was completely at his mercy. Too weak to run, too weak to fight. It's for the best, Mom, Marcus whispered in my ear. Just relax. Let them take care of you. And as the nurse approached with a wheelchair, as Dr. Reeves typed notes into his tablet, as the sterile white walls of the medical complex closed in around me, I realized something that made me want to scream. No one was going to save me. No one was going to believe me. And Marcus had won. They wheeled me to the psychiatric ward. Not neurology, psychiatry, because that's what happens when an old woman starts making wild accusations against her devoted son. They don't investigate. They sedate. The room was small and sterile, with a single window that looked out onto the parking lot. Bars on the window. Not decorative. Real bars. For my own safety, they said. Marcus stayed with me while they got me settled. He held my hand. He stroked my hair. He played the role of the heartbroken son so perfectly that even I almost believed him. I'll be back tomorrow, Mom, he said, kissing my forehead. Try to rest. Let the doctors help you. When he left, a nurse came in with a small paper cup. More pills. Different ones this time, but pills nonetheless. What are these? I asked. Something to help you relax. Doctor's orders. I don't want them. Her expression shifted from sympathetic to firm. Mrs. Hayes, you can take them voluntarily, or we can administer them another way. But you're going to take them. Those are the rules. So I took them. What choice did I have? Within 20 minutes, the world went soft and fuzzy around the edges. My thoughts scattered like dandelion seeds in the wind, and I drifted into a chemical sleep that felt like drowning. When I woke up, it was dark outside. My mouth was dry as cotton, and my head felt like it was stuffed with wool. A different nurse was checking my vitals, her face a blur in the dim light. What time is it? I mumbled. Almost midnight. How are you feeling? Tired, thirsty. She brought me water, helped me sit up to drink it. Then she left, and I was alone in the darkness with nothing but the sound of my own breathing and the distant beeping of monitors from other rooms. This was it. This was where I would die. Not in some dramatic confrontation, not with any chance to fight back. Just slowly fading away in a locked room while Marcus waited for the insurance money to clear. I thought about Thomas, about how he'd died of a heart attack at 62, quick and unexpected. At the time, I thought it was cruel, unfair. Now I realized it was a mercy. He died free, loved, unbetrayed. And I thought about Barbara Clemens, about how she must have felt in those final months when she was too confused to understand what was happening, but some part of her knew. Some deep, animal part of her brain was screaming danger while everyone around her smiled and nodded and told her everything was fine. I was crying, silent tears running down my cheeks in the darkness, not because I was afraid of dying, but because I was afraid of dying like this, voiceless, invisible, erased. That's when I heard it, a soft tapping on the window. I turned my head, thinking it was a bird or a branch, but the tapping continued, rhythmic, insistent, deliberate. With tremendous effort, I pushed myself out of bed and shuffled to the window. The bars made it hard to see, but when I pressed my face close to the glass, I could make out a figure in the parking lot below, 3 floors down, standing under a streetlight. William. He was holding something up, a piece of paper with large letters written on it. "Hold on, help is coming." My heart lurched. I pressed my palm against the glass, and he nodded. Then he looked around as if checking for security and disappeared into the shadows. Help is coming. What help? How? But it didn't matter, because for the first time since this nightmare began, I knew I wasn't alone. Morning came with breakfast on a tray and more pills from a cheerful nurse who ignored my protests. But this time, I had a plan. When she turned to dispose of the paper cup, I palmed 2 of the 3 pills and slipped them under the mattress. One I had to swallow. They watched too carefully, but 2 out of 3 was better than nothing. Mid-morning, Marcus arrived. He brought flowers, daisies, my favorite, the kind Thomas used to bring me every Friday for 42 years. The cruelty of that gesture nearly broke me. "How are you feeling today, Mom?" He set the flowers on the bedside table and sat in the visitor's chair, all concern and affection. "Tired. That's the medication. It'll take a few days to adjust." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I spoke with Dr. Reeves this morning. He thinks you'll need to stay here for at least a week, maybe longer. They want to run a lot of tests." A week. That's all the time I had left. "I spoke with a few assisted living facilities," he continued. "Really nice places. When you're ready to leave here, we can visit them together. Find somewhere you'll be comfortable. I want to go home. I know you do, sweetheart, but the house isn't safe for you anymore. You know that." His voice was gentle, but his eyes were calculating, working through timelines, probabilities. "I'm going to list the house next week. Get it ready for sale. We can use that money to pay for your care." There it was, the end game. Sell the house, liquidate my assets, move me into a facility where he could control everything. And then, "When did you stop loving me?" The words came out before I could stop them. Marcus blinked. "What?" "I need to know. Was there a specific moment? Or did it just fade over time?" "Mom, I love you. That's why I'm doing all this." "Don't." My voice was stronger than it had been in months. "Don't insult me by lying. Not now. I may be weak and I may be old, but I'm not stupid. So just tell me the truth. When did I stop being your mother and start being an obstacle?" For a long moment, he just stared at me. And then something shifted in his face. The mask didn't just slip. It fell away completely. What was underneath was cold and hard and empty. "You want the truth?" His voice was different now, flat. "You were never anything but an obligation, a duty, something I had to pretend to care about because that's what society expects. But you and Dad, you were so suffocating, so needy, so pathetically desperate for me to love you the way you loved each other." Each word was a knife, but I needed to hear them, needed to understand. "I have debts, Mom. Serious debts. The kind that get people hurt if they're not paid. And you're sitting on $500,000 in assets, living in that house all alone, wasting money on groceries and utilities and your meaningless little life." He leaned closer. "So yes, I came home. Yes, I played the devoted son. And yes, I've been slowly poisoning you with potassium supplements mixed with your real blood pressure medication. It mimics heart disease, makes you weak and confused. And when you finally have that fatal heart attack, which should happen any day now, no one will question it. You're old. You've been sick. These things happen." There it was, the full confession, the truth I'd known but couldn't quite accept until I heard it from his own mouth. "You won't get away with this," I whispered. He laughed. Actually laughed. "Who's going to stop me? You? You can barely stand. You're in a psychiatric ward. Anything you say is just more paranoid delusions." William? That crazy old man next door? Nobody listens to him either. He's tried to report suspected elder abuse 3 times in the past 10 years. 3 different neighbors. The police think he's senile and paranoid. My blood went cold. 3 times? His own wife was one of them. His son Mark was doing the same thing I'm doing, taking good care of dear old Mom while slowly bleeding her dry. William figured it out too late. She died 6 years ago. Natural causes. Marcus smiled. It was the cruelest thing I'd ever seen. Mark got everything, and William got to live with the guilt of not saving her. That's why he sent you that note. He recognized the signs, but it doesn't matter. No one believes him. No one will believe you. Why are you telling me this? Because you asked for the truth, and because it doesn't matter anymore. You're already dead, Mom. You just haven't stopped breathing yet. He stood up, straightened his jacket, and picked up his phone. I have to go handle some business. I'll be back tomorrow. He paused at the door and looked back at me. Goodbye, Eleanor. Not goodbye, Mom. Just Eleanor. As if I were already a stranger, already a memory, already erased. The door closed behind him, and I was alone with the truth I'd been running from. My son was a monster, and I was out of time. That afternoon, I asked the nurse if I could make a phone call. Who do you want to call? She asked, suspicious. My sister, Ruth, in Savannah. Please, I just need to hear her voice. Maybe it was the way I said it, or maybe she just felt sorry for me. But she brought me a phone and dialed the number I recited from memory. It rang 4 times. Then Ruth's voice, warm and familiar. Hello? Ruthie, I said, and started crying. Eleanor? Oh my God, Eleanor. Where are you? I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Marcus said you were in the hospital, but he wouldn't tell me which one. Ruth, listen to me. I don't have much time. I could see the nurse watching me from the doorway. I'm at Mercy Regional in the psychiatric ward. Marcus is poisoning me. He's trying to kill me for my insurance money. I need you to call the police. Please, you have to believe me. There was a pause. A long, terrible pause where I thought she wouldn't believe me either. Then, I'm coming. Right now. I'm getting in my car and I'm coming. Ruth, I believe you, Ellie. I've believed something was wrong for months. I'm bringing the police with me. Just hold on. Please, baby sister, just hold on. The nurse came and took the phone away. That's enough for today. But it was enough. Ruth believed me. Ruth was coming. I just had to survive until she got here. But Marcus was smarter than I'd given him credit for. That evening, a different doctor appeared. Dr. Saunders, young and officious, with Marcus right behind him. Mrs. Hayes. Doctor. Saunders said, Your son has informed me that you've been making distressing phone calls. We think it's best if we adjust your medication to help with the agitation. No, I said. No more medication. I'm afraid I have to insist. We can't have you upsetting your family with these paranoid episodes. Marcus stood behind him, arms crossed, watching me, waiting. The nurse came in with a syringe this time. Not pills, an injection. Something I couldn't fake swallowing. Please, I begged. Please, just wait. My sister is coming. She'll be here soon. Just wait. Your sister is 2 hours away, Mom, Marcus said softly. And when she gets here, I'll explain that you're having a psychiatric crisis, that you're not yourself. She'll understand. The nurse approached with the syringe. I tried to pull away, but I was too weak. The needle pierced my arm, and I felt the cold rush of whatever chemical they were injecting into my bloodstream. It's for the best, Dr. Saunders said. And as the room started to blur and spin, as my thoughts began to scatter, I realized that Marcus was going to win after all. He was going to kill me right here in this hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses who would all swear it was natural causes. A heart weakened by months of illness. A sad but inevitable outcome. I was dimly aware of being moved. Voices talking over me. Marcus's hand on my forehead, playing the devoted son one last time for the medical staff. Then darkness. I woke to shouting. My mind was clouded, my body felt like lead, but the shouting cut through the fog. Multiple voices, angry, urgent. Don't care what the protocol is, that's my sister and I want to see her now. Ruth. That was Ruth's voice. I tried to sit up, but my body wouldn't cooperate. Tried to call out, but my voice was barely a whisper. Then the door burst open. Ruth stormed in, and she wasn't alone. There were 2 police officers with her. And behind them, looking small and determined, was William. "Oh my God, Eleanor." Ruth rushed to my bedside, her face twisted with horror. "What have they done to you?" "Ma'am, you need to calm down," one of the officers said. "Calm down? Look at her. Does she look like someone who's being properly cared for?" Ruth turned to the officers. I told you something was wrong." Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of concern. "Officers, I'm sorry about this. My aunt is very upset, but my mother is receiving excellent care. Where is it?" William's voice, quiet but firm, cut through the chaos. Everyone turned to look at him. "Where is what?" Marcus asked. "The pill bottle, the one you've been giving her." William stepped forward, and I saw that he was holding something, a plastic bag. "I have samples, pills I collected from Mrs. Hayes's property, pills she spit out and hid because she knew something was wrong. I had them tested by a pharmacist friend." He held up a paper, a lab report. "Potassium chloride, massive doses, mixed with her real medication." William's voice shook. "Enough to cause heart problems, weakness, confusion, eventual cardiac arrest, the same thing my son used on my wife." The room went silent. Marcus's face was white. "That's ridiculous. This man is insane. He's been harassing us." "Then you won't mind if we test Mrs. Hayes's blood," one of the officers said. "Right now. See what's actually in her system." "This is absurd. I'm not going to stand here and be accused." "Answer the question, sir. Will you consent to a blood test?" Marcus looked at me, at Ruth, at William, at the 2 officers blocking his exit, and then he ran. He actually tried to run, made it 3 steps before one of the officers tackled him. There was a crash, shouting, the sound of handcuffs clicking into place. Ruth was crying, holding my hand. "It's okay, Ellie. It's okay. You're safe now." William stood at the foot of my bed, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry I didn't act sooner. I kept thinking about my Diane, about how I didn't save her. I couldn't let it happen again. I wanted to thank him, wanted to tell Ruth I loved her, but the sedative was still in my system, pulling me under." The last thing I heard before I slipped back into unconsciousness was one of the officers reading Marcus his rights. "You have the right to remain silent." Recovery was slow. They had to flush the poison from my system, wean me off the sedatives, rebuild my strength. It took 3 weeks in the hospital, a real hospital this time, not a psychiatric ward, before I could walk without assistance. Another month of physical therapy before I felt like myself again. Ruth stayed with me the entire time. She'd taken leave from her job, moved into my house, and appointed herself my guardian and advocate. She made sure every doctor, every nurse, every specialist understood exactly what had happened. Made sure Marcus's crimes were documented in my medical records. Marcus was arrested on charges of attempted murder, elder abuse, and fraud. The police found evidence of his gambling debts, his financial desperation, his calculated plan. They even found the potassium supplements he'd been crushing into my food and medications. He'd kept them in his room like trophies, like proof of his cleverness. His trial is scheduled for next month. I'll have to testify, face him across a courtroom, and tell a jury what my own son tried to do to me. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about it, wondering if I'll have the strength. But then I remember William's words. "You survived. That takes more strength than most people will ever need." William and I are friends now, real friends. He comes over for coffee every Tuesday and Thursday. We sit on my porch, the one that still needs painting, and we talk about loss and survival and the strange ways life brings people together. He told me about Diane, about how he'd suspected but convinced himself he was imagining things, about how he'd found her pills hidden in her room after she died, but by then it was too late, about how he'd tried to warn others, other elderly neighbors he'd seen the signs in, but nobody would listen. "You listened," I told him. "You saved my life." "You saved your own life," he said. "You were the one who had the courage to ask for help, to keep fighting even when it seemed hopeless. Maybe we're both right. Ruth wants me to move to Savannah, wants me to sell this house. It has too many bad memories," she says. "But I don't know. This is still my home, the place I built with Thomas. The place where I raised my son back when I believed he could grow into someone good. Maybe that's the hardest part, Not the physical recovery, but the grief. Mourning the son I thought I had. Mourning the relationship that never really existed except in my imagination. People ask me if I hate Marcus, if I wish I'd never had him. The answer is complicated. I hate what he did. I hate what he became. But that little boy I held in my arms, the one I sang to sleep and bandaged scraped knees for, I still love him. I love the child he was, even though the man he became tried to kill me. Is that pathetic? Maybe. But it's the truth. And I'm done lying. I'm done pretending. I'm done being the good girl who doesn't make waves or ask uncomfortable questions. If there's anything I want you to take from my story, it's this. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone is isolating you, controlling you, making you doubt your own mind, that's not love. That's abuse. And you deserve better. You deserve to be believed. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to live. I'm 65 years old, and I almost didn't make it to 66. But I'm here. I'm alive. And I'm done being invisible. If you've made it this far, if you've listened to my whole story, I want to thank you. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is witness each other's pain, see each other's truth, and refuse to look away. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Stories about survival, about finding strength in the darkest places, about the unexpected people who become our saviors. And if you're going through something similar, if you're afraid, if you're trapped, if you think no one will believe you, please reach out. Call a domestic violence hotline. Tell a friend. Tell a neighbor. Tell anyone who will listen. Because your life is worth fighting for. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. Last Tuesday, William brought over a plant, a spider plant in a ceramic pot. For your porch, he said. They're hardy. Survivors. Like you. I put it in the corner where it catches the morning sun. And sometimes, when I'm sitting in Thomas's old chair with my coffee, watching the neighborhood come alive, I look at that plant and I think, I survived. Not because I was strong or smart or prepared. I survived because I finally chose myself. Because I listened to that small voice inside me that said no. Because I asked for help. Because people like Ruth and William believed me. And because I decided that my life, my messy, complicated, imperfect life, was worth saving. That's the truth they don't tell you about survival. It's not glamorous. It's not pretty. It's waking up every day and choosing to keep going even when it hurts. It's grieving what you lost, while being grateful for what you kept. It's learning to trust again while staying vigilant. It's rebuilding yourself from the inside out. Some days are harder than others. Some days I can't stop thinking about Marcus, about the little boy he used to be. Other days, I'm so angry I can barely breathe. And other days, I'm just grateful. Grateful for Ruth, for William, for second chances, for spider plants and morning coffee and porches that need painting. I'm Eleanor Hayes. I'm 65 years old. My son tried to kill me, and I survived to tell about it. And that's not the end of my story. It's the beginning.